In the 21st century, not all places are safe for people. It's hard to believe in the 21st century. However, in some countries, discrimination based on gender, race, or religious affiliation still exists, not to mention sexual orientation. But some countries top the list of danger. Typically, they are located either in Africa or in the Middle East. In light of recent events that shook the world, referring to the Taliban taking control, Afghanistan tops the list of the most dangerous countries. Somalia, a country located in Africa, ranks only 6th on the list. However, it is striking in terms of cruelty, famine, and mass illiteracy among the population. In addition, the country is plagued by banditry and piracy. This not only affects ordinary residents but also foreign vessels. Over the years of robbery, they have become modern armed groups that hijack maritime vessels off the coast of Somalia for ransom. They use boats, motorboats, and fishing boats as transportation. They are usually armed with automatic weapons and grenade launchers. Somali pirates are often well organized but rarely have proper training. If a person decides to visit this country, they need to know not only the tourist attractions that attract them, but also the history of this state, particularly its current unstable situation. Somalia is not a unified state. Several state entities exist on this territory: the Federal Republic of Somalia, Somaliland, and the Islamic Caliphate of Somalia. The international community only recognizes the Federal Republic of Somalia as a state. However, Somaliland and the Islamic Caliphate of Somalia have their own laws, entry rules, foreign policies, and representations in other countries. It borders countries such as Djibouti, Ethiopia, and Kenya. These states are also not known for their safety, but they are more welcoming to tourists. The country is known for its numerous historical sites, beaches, waterfalls, mountain ranges, and national parks. But it is more notorious for civil wars, devastation, and anarchy. The country is divided into several conflicting regions. The south and southwest of Somalia are the arena of confrontation between Islamist movements, Al-Shabaab, and Hizbul Islam, with autonomous administrations allied to the federal government of Somalia. The north of the country is controlled by the unrecognized state of the Republic of Somaliland, which unilaterally declared independence in 1991. Meanwhile, in the central part of Somalia, several small warring armed groups continue to operate, including Somali pirate clans mentioned earlier, having a high degree of autonomy from federal authorities. The history of these lands, which led to such tragic consequences, dates back to the 3rd millennium BCE, when the Egyptians exported gold, frankincense, and ebony from here. They called this territory the Land of the Gods because of its abundance of wealth. In the 3rd century BCE, Greeks and Egyptians established their trading posts in northern Somalia. In addition to extracting valuable minerals, they hunted and transported elephants to Egypt. But the most interesting part of the history begins in the 19th century, when armed conflicts arise between sultanates and local tribes. They were provoked not so much by land disputes as by religious reasons. As early as the 12th, the 13th centuries, Islam spread in the Somali lands and firmly took root in the minds of the local population. It faced competition only in the early 19th century, when various Islamic movements became more attractive to people. But it's not just that. Muslims have a concept called jihad, which means the struggle for faith. Even in our time, there are still military conflicts between different branches of Islam, each of which asserts its own truth and righteousness. In 1819, one of the sects established the theocratic state of Bardera, which fought against the sultanates of Galedi, Tuni, and Barawe. However, Bardera was defeated by its neighbors in the mid-19th century. Despite this, pockets of jihadism remained. In 1884 to 1888, Britain, Italy, and France divided the entire Somali coastline among themselves. Italy took control of the southern part of Somalia as a protectorate. The Germans also claimed the southern regions of Somalia, but the British did not allow it. The northern coastline came under British rule, while Djibouti became part of France. Some Somali tribes in the inland areas recognized the authority of Ethiopia. The colonizers brought their religion, which they tried to introduce to the local population. But this only led to a powerful surge of jihadism, which, to some extent, united the people. During World War II, Somalia was initially united under the Italian flag and later under the British flag. The future of the colony sparked heated debates at the international level, and eventually, it was decided to grant independence after a prolonged transitional period. In 1960, Somalia gained independence, and that was when the two former colonies, Italian Somalia and British Somalia, Somaliland, formally united. Aden Abdullah Osman Dar became the first president. In September 1960, the USSR established diplomatic relations with Somalia. In 1969, following a military coup, General Mohammed Siad Barre came to power, declaring a course towards building socialism with Islamic specifics. After gaining independence, Somalia made territorial claims to neighboring countries and territories, including Kenya, Ethiopia, and Djibouti. In 1977, Siad Barre unexpectedly attacked Ethiopia, which was the second Soviet ally, deciding to take advantage of the neighbors' difficulties and pursue a policy of creating Greater Somalia with the goal of reclaiming the Ogaden region, seized by Ethiopia in the early 20th century and populated by Somali tribes. Since both countries had pro-Soviet governments at the time, the USSR had to choose sides in the conflict, and the Ethiopian leadership seemed more reliable. As a result of the war, the Ethiopian army, with massive supplies of Soviet weapons and Cuban volunteers, defeated the aggressor. The period after the Ogaden War was marked by a general crisis in the economic and political spheres. In the 1980s, a rebel war broke out in the north of the country, and as a result of the ongoing crisis, President Mohammed Siad Barre was overthrown in 1991, plunging the country into complete chaos. Somalia as a state effectively ceased to exist, losing all attributes of unity and breaking up into multiple parts controlled by warring field commanders. The northern part of the country declared its independence as the Republic of Somaliland and remains relatively stable. In 1991 to 1992, due to the collapse of all social structures in Somalia, a severe famine broke out, claiming the lives of 300,000 people. In December 1992, as part of the Operation Restore Hope, UN peacekeeping forces were deployed to the country to protect workers of humanitarian organizations, distributing aid from the actions of local field commanders. Even today, the population of Somalia regularly suffers from drought every 2-3 years, leading to famine. The severe economic situation and climate shocks have resulted in critically high levels of acute malnutrition in Somalia. According to the UN, over 15% of the population in Somalia suffers from acute malnutrition, with approximately 3.5% of the country's population experiencing severe acute malnutrition, which poses a life-threatening danger. The prevalence of acute malnutrition, coupled with a lack of access to clean drinking water, has also led to an increased number of infectious diseases. In the first 6 months of 2017 alone, 53,000 new cases of cholera and 10,000 new cases of measles were registered. These statistics are not surprising considering that only 31% of the population in northwestern regions of Somalia has access to safe drinking water. This figure is even lower in northeastern areas, 19%, and in the southern part of the country, 20%. In urban areas, about 35% of the population has access to safe drinking water, while in rural areas, this figure drops to 10%. Moreover, the capital city of Mogadishu lacks a water supply system. Access to drinking water in the city with a population of over 2 million people is only possible through 138 privately owned wells, where the price per cubic meter of water ranges from 80 cents to $1.50 USD. Visas for Somaliland and the Republic of Somalia are not recognized in each other's territories, so travelers planning a trip should clearly know in which zone of Somalia it will take place. Tourists can obtain a visa for Somaliland at the border, as well as at diplomatic missions in the United States, European countries, Yemen, and Ethiopia. Currently, due to the country's challenging political situation, it is not recommended for citizens to visit Somalia. The threat of terrorism in the country is recognized as one of the highest in the world. Somalia is characterized by a high level of crime. Tourists wishing to visit the region should be aware that the social norms of Somali life are based on Muslim traditions, and it is advisable not to violate them. Well, that's all from me. This was Hustler. Until we meet again.